Okay, is there really one thing that can reduce the depth of your wrinkles, increase your libido, increase testosterone in men over 50 and 60, help you deeper sleep, accelerate your healing, and 96% of our population is supposed to be missing this. Is this true? Or is this another wacky thing that we got to figure
and
out is true or not?
and can it build love into communities?
Yeah, isn't that crazy that he said
Bonding.
All right, everybody,
Right.
this is Dr. V and me, and we are trying to figure out what's true about this trend or this new awesome thing that's potentially a game changer in everybody's health. And that's what we do is we try to look at it from different angles. I'll throw it before our mastermind group, see if they can shoot holes in it, and we're going to look at all the research, but we're also going to see how it's playing out clinically and through muscle testing. So,
Yeah. And you already let the cat out of the bag because you called it awesome already.
well, it's potentially very awesome. Well, and here's the thing: there are a lot of awesome things out there, and it takes a lot to get our attention. But you sent it to me, and I was reading about it, and you sent me a picture of the product that you're taking, and then somebody else did, and finally I said, "Okay, let's dive in and let's figure
Right.
this out."
Right.
And you and I have had so many conversations in the past about oxytocin
Right.
to the point where we spent some time trying to figure out a good muscle testing point for it,
Right.
some auricular points and some acupuncture points.
Mhm.
So you've started using it before I have. So tell me what you're thinking about it so far.
I'm loving it. I mean, it's oxytocin is such a profound hormone, and to have a way to kind of immediately measure that, in real time and not having to wait for a result to come back, in a lab test or that sort of thing, and to translate or extrapolate that into something we're doing right then and there. Can this product, for example, make a difference? Can a food make a difference? Or what are the precursors that are causing it to not function properly? Because again, oxytocin's massive, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you and I have been kind of joking. I've been joking with you, calling it the Woodstock neurotransmitter hormone.
Yeah.
Because it's the hormone of love, of bonding. It's the mom bonding to that child while she's nursing, and I mean, what better bond is there than that? And so if we can get that going in our marriages, right, in the world around us, then how much less hate crime would be going on if everybody had oxytocin, had the L-reuteri in their gut.
Right, right. Yeah, and we always talk about like, okay, people, you can hug people more, and it's supposed to help you produce more test or oxytocin, and there's so many things that help you do that. But from our perspective, we're always looking at, well, do you have the genuine things that your body needs to make that, even though you're trying to stimulate it? I know it's
Right.
really highly dependent on vitamin C. It's a
Mhm.
many polypeptide hormone, right? It's not just like
Mhm.
just need one precursor like dopamine. You need an
Mhm.
abundance of amino acids, so it's a little harder to make.
Mhm.
But I think I think one of the things that's caught our attention with this L. reuteri, right, strain,
Yes, right, right.
is that the speculation is that it really helps not only stimulate the hypothalamus and in the pituitary to create it and release it, but it actually creates it in the endothelium itself. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Mhm. And,
And
and and it's just a probiotic. It's a gut bacteria. So L. reuteri is Lactobacillus reuteri. So there's probably hundreds of them, and that's where a lot of the studies are going these days of, how can these different, probiotics affect us? And, patients always ask, what probiotics should I take? What are you trying to do? Every single one has a completely different function. It's like B vitamins. Should I take a B vitamin? Well, do you want B1 or do you want B24? What are
yeah,
we trying to correct? And
yeah,
so
yeah.
the research is just mind blowing these days on,
Yeah.
how each individual bacteria, like there's a lot now on lactobacillus, but probiotics actually making B12. So do we want to take B12 or do we need to enhance the gut's bacteria to make the B12? So that's where
Exactly.
we're going with all this,
Yeah.
right?
Well, this is a big question I keep throwing before people is there's all these people talking about this fat soluble B1, right? Not just thiamine, but benfotiamine and TTFD and all this. And when I come to learn that L-reuteri is very much involved in the production of vitamin B1, I thought, aha, now it makes sense, right? That's why people aren't getting it.
Right.
And it makes sense too how the fact that it's so sensitive to antibiotics and pesticides. And that's why in the 60s it was abundantly available. And now there's almost 96% of the population who don't have this. Of course, right? If you've had one round of antibiotics and you never replaced it, you're good luck, right? You're struggling with it.
And that's a problem. You just said 96% of the population doesn't have it.
Right.
And we're talking about
every person. Here, just take this right now.
Right. Welcome.
Trust me, you'll feel better, right? Yeah.
Right. Seriously. And yeah, a couple I was hanging out with over the weekend, they started the yogurt that we're about to talk to, you know, and they've been on it. So I'm asking questions, how much better, how much deeper is your marriage, you know? How's your love?
A couple of weeks, from what I understand, to really kind of ramped up. That's why I was trying to remind people, if you are thinking about that, you have to do it in abundance of it. And here's the other things I want to caution everybody before they just run out and just think this is going to fix everything. You have to set up the environment in your body to be able to let it live and proliferate. I think it's the biggest step that most people skip, is they think, oh, I'll just introduce this new species, but everything's so jacked up from a different pH and overgrowth and all this other stuff that it's not necessarily going to take hold, and it's not necessarily going to give you those results. So
it's like the parable of the soils, right? Are we trying to grow the probiotics on cement, or are we good having some good nourished soil there to grow it? And so that's a prebiotic. There's another discussion, and go on. You got something hot there.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the other thing that really lit my brain up about this, that grabbed my attention, is we have been taught, and I've been led to believe, and for a while I thought it was true, that the jejunum is sterile, that there's nothing living in there. It's not supposed to be, right? That's exactly where everything gets, all the nutrients get absorbed, and all the microbes are down in the colon. And it's a problem when we get that upward migration because the pH gets off. But this species and a couple others are supposed to actually inhabit the duodenum and the jejunum, right? So the upper
small intestine for you less technical people.
So they're like they're the guards getting into the colon, and they actually create these chemicals that are lethal to pathogenic species, right? To the bad bacteria, they're helping kill them off. So that's another benefit, right, of having this in there.
SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, right? And so the prebiotics we need to talk about. We're talking about nourishing the soil. So we got the prebiotic inulin. You know, those are prebiotics, meaning that's the nutrients to feed the good bacteria. So if you take a probiotic and, you know, parable of soils, we're taking it and it doesn't, like cement, you know, or in others doesn't have the nutrients to feed that, then what good is it? So, you know, that's a common complaint I've had when I give patients, you know, this prebiotic inulin, for example, then they've got gas and stuff. Well, yeah, the whole intestinal bacterial environment is changing. You're getting rid of that, you know, that methane gas, which is literally, you smelled it at the dump. You smelled it when your spouse, not you, of course, but when your spouse lets some gas out, you know, that's that shift in that especially small intestinal bacteria. And when SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth environment, that's bloating, right? Bloating, gas comes out the other side, bloating or burping if you know, there's weaker stomach acid. So these are all symptoms when that bacterial, that jejunum, that ileum, the small intestinal environment is out of whack. Then those are symptoms that people could look for. Physically weak, physical, you know, we're talking kinesiology. That's, you know, we all like to know the muscle organ correlations. The quad muscles are going to get compromised and weak, and the abdominal muscles are going to get compromised and weak when the small intestine is not functioning properly. So we've got these, you know, the SIBO symptoms, but then we've got the weakness in the quads. That's the knee, the runner, you know, that has knee problems. That's often a small intestinal problem. So look at your prebiotics, look at the stuff we're talking about today.
Yeah, man. So I want to share a couple of research studies, because obviously Supergut is the book, right? Supergut is the book that was written by Dr. William Davis. Have you read that one yet?
Oh yeah, I have not gotten into that one yet.
Okay. And he's the guy who really has been the champion of L-Reuteri. And here's the thing, I want to do a competition. I've heard it pronounced L-Reuteri, L-Reuteri, L-Reuteri. I think it's if you're sticking with the Latin, it's Reuteri. But whatever, you know, we're all talking about the same thing. But so he talks about, you know, and we've talked about this a lot, the species, the subspecies, and the strain specificity, you know, being so specific for all of those. Lactobacillus being the species, right? and Reuteri being the subspecies, but then there's strain specificity, right?
Okay. Okay.
And the ones that he keeps talking about is L. Lactobacillus Reuteri, and then he's got two numbers, PTA 6475. Now that's the one he says is the one to be creating the yogurt that you mentioned earlier with.
Okay.
But I found this really cool trial, and I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to share the screen with this over here. And this is the effects of two probiotics together on mental health and in sleep. I thought that was pretty awesome, right? So they did an 8-week randomized double blind, the whole gold standard, everything. But they were using Lactobacillus reuteri, but NK33, right? A different strain specifically, and bifidobacterium. So I think we're still obviously in very young stages of determining how important the actual specific strain is. And this, I don't want to get people in the weeds too much, but I think it's important that we really start bringing in at least the Lactobacillus reuteri, because we know that that's been messed up. But this was pretty cool. I mean, they showed that they had a more significant reduction in depressive symptoms at 4 and 8 weeks just by adding this in. So as quickly as 4 to 8 weeks, you can see it. Anxiety symptoms at 4 weeks were better compared to placebo group. And they also experienced an improvement in sleep quality. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the question is then that what you and I always want to ask is, well, why? Right? What is it doing that's improving sleep? What is it doing that's improving mood? And that's what led us back to our favorite, oxytocin, right?
Yes. Yes. And little plug, you're gonna be talking about sleep on our other mastermind session.
A whole presentation on sleep. Yeah, we got to get that mastered. Yeah.
So from the gut brain connection there, I mean, simply starting, GABA is the brain's GABA aminobutyric acid is the brain's control of the gut, and that is the primary brain's inhibitory neurotransmitter. And so when gut bacteria is out of whack, then especially parasites, then we get low GABA. We have low GABA. So GABA is the neurotransmitter that needs to glutamate. Right, glutamate is when we're excited. MSG, monosodium glutamate. When we're excited and stimulated, like we're sounding on this conversation.
People think that we're high glutamate all the time because you move too fast.
The way we live. So at night, that glutamate needs to chill out, and that needs to convert to GABA so we can shut it off and go to sleep. So if we have, gut dysbiosis, in other words, the gut bacteria is out of whack, then we have, and especially with parasites, then we have low GABA. We don't have the filter. So it's also we were talking about oxytocin for love, but also we need to be good husbands and have that, the GABA, the filter to think before we speak.
Yeah.
So look at how we can change society here.
Well, and he actually talks about, he really thinks that a lot of the disconnection that people are feeling is because their lack of their ability to produce oxytocin, because they just don't have this. And I follow that. It tracks, And you and I know beyond that we used to think it was all produced in the hypothalamus in the pituitary. And there's so many things that have insulted the average American's hypothalamus and pituitary. So you have a diminished capacity to produce it up here. And if you don't have that down there, I mean, where's it coming from? Right? How do you?
Right. And so for the lay public, hypothalamus is your thermostat.
Right.
Pituitary is basically, I call it air traffic control for the hormones.
Okay.
So these are big areas, big global effects when we're affecting the hypothalamus and the pituitary.
Yeah. Everything. Right. And so back to oxytocin, I'll show you one more study here, just that I found when I was getting prepared for this. Is the results of this showing that oxytocin is also produced in the intestinal epithelium, according to this. Okay. So that was pretty cool to see that the microbial stimulation of oxytocin release from the intestinal epithelium. And they also say that it helps with the actual signaling itself in the brain. So
send that over if you would.
Oh yeah. Here, I'll put it in.
Oh yeah.
For you.
Messing up our recording here.
Yeah.
Getting selfish. Help me out. Thank you.
Got it. But here, what I also learned about oxytocin is it actually increases melatonin, right? So that's important for so many people to know. There's so many people taking over-the-counter melatonin. By the way, illegal in other countries, right? You have to get a prescription for melatonin.
Serious?
Because they're not getting sleep. And well, maybe it's because the oxytocin isn't there to help with the production, right, of melatonin.
Okay.
Also sleep disturbances, right? So
Mhm.
it reduces the amount of time somebody's waking up at night, which is really one of the harder things that people come and ask questions about. I'm like, well, I can fall asleep because I'm exhausted, but then I wake up, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
obviously we know there's adrenal things and a lot of other things contributing to that. But I think if we can bring in more oxytocin, of course, that's going to help all of it get better in a big way.
100%. Yeah, and just a sidebar. Typically, when things are illegal or threatened like that, that means it works.
Yeah.
I want to know about it, not just because I'm a rebel, but
Right.
I mean, look at like tryptophan, right? I mean, that was
Yeah.
such a perfect example of this. That
Yeah.
tryptophan was taken off the market because it worked. It helped people sleep, and so the people that had big, millions and billions of dollars invested in, sleep medications, they were threatened by it. So they compromised the tryptophan source. People got sick, from it. So there was no tryptophan available. And then eventually the cover was blown that it was the drug company that had what am I, compromised the tryptophan that they were selling. And so it got pulled off the market. Sleeping aids went up. So,
Sleeping aids, antidepressants came out the week after.
right.
And well, because tryptophan is the precursor for serotonin,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is, that they have serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and then melatonin is what is made from serotonin, right? So the whole thing,
Right.
right?
Trace the money trail.
Yeah, and up the physiology trail too, is why that was so important to both of those industries.
Seriously. So it again, just saying, if it's been outlawed in other countries, then wow,
Yeah,
we need to know about it because there's been people are finding value to it with it.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think that I don't think you can buy oxytocin, right? Necessarily. I gotta
No,
hope.
yeah, but so it was oxytocin that was outlawed or the
No, no, no,
Reuteri?
no.
Yeah.
It was actually, well, melatonin. You have to get through
Oh,
a
oh,
prescription in other countries.
oh.
But
Okay. Mhm.
melatonin is sold over the counter here, which is it's not safe because there've been a lot of hospitalizations due to overdoses.
Mhm.
They're not very good at making sure that they're saying the right amount of melatonin is actually in the
Mhm.
products they found. There's a whole article about this last year. So it's
Yeah.
always dangerous, right, to skip those steps and
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
just, because it is tempting to say, oh, well, oxytocin is so amazing. Just give me oxytocin. But you want
Mhm.
your body to be able to make it, right? And you want to figure out why your body can't make it. And that's
Mhm.
what's so potentially exciting about this L-Reuteri, is because that's one of the reasons it hasn't been being made, and all the other things that go with that,
Right,
right?
right. So for the public, what symptoms are you seeing with people taking too much melatonin? Mhm.
Um, whoa, gosh, that's a good question.
Mhm.
I haven't really. I am very vocal about people not taking it, so I don't see a lot of people coming in and taking it. But
Okay.
I mean, they use it as a short-term thing, but then the rest, it just messes up the signaling, and messes up
Mm-hmm.
their body's ability to get adapted to their right circadian rhythm, right? Unless they're taking it
Hmm.
at the same time every night. What about
Right.
what about you?
Yeah, well, you mentioned circadian rhythm. We need to talk about sugar. Sugar messes up the circadian rhythm, feeds the bad bacteria, which, kind of messes all that up. There's a great book called Lights Out that goes into a lot of that.
Hmm.
Speaking of, we want the red orange hues to stimulate melatonin of sundown, versus the green blue hues of sunrise stimulates cortisol production. So, I mean, we are hardwired. So, sun goes down, melatonin goes up, sun comes up, cortisol goes up to get
Right.
us up and going. So, lights out goes into that. So, those, melatonin is supposed to help with that. I do see that, taking too much disrupts gut bacteria and gut biota. And so then there's some intestinal problems. And as you mentioned, the signaling, we want to help facilitate the body's production of any. I mean, this is going to be the same answer when we talk about any of the rest of the hormones.
Right.
I get calls and questions about, should I take HRT or hormone replacement therapy? It's like, my goal is to help your body produce those hormones properly,
Right.
not give the synthetic hormones that then, 10 years down the road, we would realize that, oops, now you've got cancer because your liver wasn't breaking those down properly. So,
Right.
melatonin is a little more mild from a, big cancer sort of perspective, but it definitely disrupts good gut bacteria, which is going to potentially set up low back pain and ultimately compromise the ability to sleep on our own or properly. Mhm.
And that's always what we're trying to do, is because once you figure out that something is missing, the question isn't, well, should I just replace that? If it's a hormone specifically, it's why can't your
Right.
body make it? You know,
Right.
most people want to blame age. They want to blame all these other things, but
Right.
there's always a better answer that's more in line with nature.
Right.
One of
Right.
the very interesting things that I was reading Dr. Davis was talking about is, now this is in mice, but you know our thymus gland, right? Our thymus gland is
Yeah.
right here in the middle, and it's very important in creating our natural killer cells and our immune function, and it's a bridge to so many things. They say that it just shrivels up and dies as we get older, right? At
They.
age like 15, it just starts to go away. Well, they were showing that when they were giving the Reuteri to these mice, it actually was able to regenerate to its original size.
Wow.
Right.
That's
So
huge.
it's huge. But the huge immune function. In fact, that was one of the things they were saying, is that it was cutting people's ability to heal from injury in half when they were getting appropriate levels of L-Reuteri back in. And I don't know if that's due to oxytocin or what it is, but you
Well,
know,
thymus is huge in that. And, you know, I had
right.
a patient that had her thymus removed, and she had, you know, autoimmune problems that she was unable to walk when I first saw her. And so there was toxic metals. I mean, part of what the thymus does is help tag toxic metals to be bound up, tags viruses to be attacked, right? So when that's not there, then the immune system's always in that state of alarm. I mean, she simply had she ate rice, and the arsenic in it would completely weaken her legs,
Oh man.
and because she was so sensitive, not having that thymus gland. And so now I'm going to be talking to her about L-Reuteri as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's profound. I call the thymus a tagging mechanism. You laid it out, you know, and
Yeah.
cortisol suppresses secretory IgA, and as cortisol is a lot of why that thymus shrinks in you know industrialized nations, you know, in the early teens like that. So again, modulating that whole stress response and so on. But yeah, anything we and immunizations, the aluminum, the adjuvant, the aluminum in immunizations uh, will shrink the thymus as well. So rebuilding the thymus is the main thing I'm doing if a person's going to has to be subjected to the assault of you know childhood immunizations and the aluminum and the mercury in there, especially aluminum and from a thymus perspective.
Yeah.
So rebuilding that is just profound.
Well, we could talk about the thymus for another 8 hours.
Seriously.
But I am reminded, because one of the most interesting things that I always like to share about that is they're now, I think it was Duke University, they've discovered that when they're doing heart transplants on children, if they take a portion of the thymus from the donor and they also put that into them, that the anti-rejection meds have to
Oh
it
yeah.
goes way down, right?
Right.
There's an acceptance because there's that connection between the thymus and the heart that's so powerful. So, you know, keep getting that thymus pump backed up is going to hopefully reduce all cause mortality, right?
Totally. And
Yeah.
then on another episode we'll cover it for 8 hours leaky gut.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So if that stuff's leaking through that, you know, to increase permeability on the gut lining, then the immune system's already on alarm. If you got a compromised thymus, then you end up looking like, you know, the rest of the USA.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much where everybody is now.
Well, let's get back to the L-Reuteri and why people want to
Yeah.
know about it too. Even Dr. Davis says, he goes, you know, I was telling people all these immune benefits and all these amazing things. He goes, but the one thing that really caught people's attention is that this explosion, as he calls it, in dermal collagen production, right? Everybody's trying to drink collagen and take all this collagen, but with oxytocin, you get younger. It actually reduced the depth of the wrinkles in people's crow's feet and everything, like significantly, like noticeably. So you actually truly, if you're looking to get younger, right, younger thymus, younger all these things, I think that we really should be putting more figuring out whether or not that L-Reuteri has been there for a while.
So Benjamin Button had an overproduction of L-Reuteri, huh?
Yeah, exactly. At least, right? If not a few other things. Yeah.
Yeah, so what are the take homes? Let's give people, you know, the to-dos from all this. This wasn't just for entertainment.
Right, 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 right. Well, I mean, if you've ever had any antibiotics in your life, right, you
Right.
to make sure that you found a way to reintroduce this into your body. Uh,
Hmm.
if you've eaten meat that has been commercially grown, so it's been exposed to antibiotics.
Hmm.
If you've eaten foods that are inorganic or that aren't organic, not inorganic, that have been
Right.
pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, the likelihood is that you are one of the 96%.
Hmm. Right.
So to be able to get any of these benefits, to be able to maximize your oxytocin, all of the things that are associated with it, you have to find an exogenous source. Yes, exogenous source to bring it into
Yes.
your body to
Right.
help get it back there. And so you and I, we found two different sources so far
Yes. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we've been
So
using.
let's talk about the physical symptoms to help
Okay.
people understand if they have problems. If the large intestine is not functioning, that's going to be low back pain in that flank area, low back pain. If the
Right.
small intestine's not functioning right, we talked about the knee weakness, riding a bike or running or something, that, then the quad muscles are not firing properly. So that's a sign that the small intestine is not functioning right, that L-reuteri might be beneficial. Gas, bloating, we talked about the fermentation of things in the gut that ends up as a burp or as a fart. So that tells us that, bowels are out of whack. If any IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, if your bowels are runny one day and stuck or sluggish the other day, or you tend towards sluggishness, incidentally, people should be having a bowel movement after each primary meal. So in other words, 3 bowel movements a day. Most people go, what? I have 3 bowel
Right.
movements a week, right?
Now let's
So,
start there. We always start there, actually.
so any of those symptoms, these are, again, our sleep is disrupted. We talked about the L-reuteri helping with oxytocin and melatonin, deep sleep. So these are all physical signs and symptoms that somebody might have to want to look deeper and go down the rabbit hole of getting this Reuteri, getting the good gut bacteria corrected, with something like one of the prebiotics, probiotics. We're going to talk about it, I guess, making yogurt, right? Is a,
Yeah.
what, 10x fold?
Well, this is the cool thing about it is that if you are motivated to do so, you can buy this probiotic once, right? And then you just crush it up and you just get some fermented, or you ferment some either coconut milk or raw milk, and you can make your
Goat milk. I'm going to use goat milk.
own. Okay.
So speaking of goat, this is relevant for this. Goat milk is the amino acid structure of goat milk is identical to human breast milk, whereas
Oh,
whereas the cow's milk is the inverse of that. Cow's milk is 80% casein, 20% whey. Human breast milk is 80% whey, 20% casein. So the immune stimulus of goat milk, this is kind of how I'm going to, cheat the system a little bit and see if
yeah.
we can't make a, miracle
Even
yogurt.
better. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we're here for, is to maximize,
Seriously.
right? Dude, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Okay. And it doesn't take much, right? That's the thing.
Ah,
According to Dr. Davis, I mean, you can read the book, but he says 36 hours is the sweet spot of letting it ferment, right?
ferment.
Letting it build up, and then you're gonna hit like hundreds and hundreds of billions of strains. The one that I've been giving people to get started with is just 200 million strains. It's a Swedish company called BioGaia, and they have two different strains of the Reuteri. They got the PTA 6475 and the DSM 17938. Not that that means anything to anybody, but if anybody's interested in it, yeah, I definitely have these, or you can order them online or whatever. We can get them hooked up with you guys. But I
Okay.
don't want to move any forward for anymore until we go over the muscle testing point for oxytocin for the muscle testers out there who are watching.
Yeah.
So
Clinicians.
yeah, can you walk me through that?
Well, it's under.
Is it the right ear or the left ear? Either one, right? It's
Yeah, I've been
bilateral.
using the right ear, but I was
Yeah.
just kind of joking because my ear's all covered up where I can't
Oh,
point to it.
right here.
So there you go. And so yeah, there's points all over the body like that, right? Most of them are on acupuncture meridians, or the beginning or the ending points for meridians for neurotransmitters. So I think you found it in a regular therapy session or something, or
Yeah. Yeah.
book, and we tested it out. Like, I mean, that's why we're calling these, right? Truth or
There's a trend.
fiction,
Yeah.
truth or trend. Because I mean, I grew up in bodybuilding. Everything was the next best thing is steroids. I'm like, all right, let's talk in a year, see if it's still around. So,
Right.
right. So it's kind of the same thing here. You found the point, and I started testing it out. I have homeopathic vials of oxytocin and that sort of stuff to compare to, and it's been playing out. And incidentally, the yogurt, the probiotic itself has been the Reuteri, L-reuteri itself has been testing beneficial to help raise oxytocin when it shows deficient there. So
Awesome.
profound.
Yeah. And if you're a muscle tester out there and you're doing that, please let us know whether or not you're seeing the same thing. And if not, it might be you got to work with the setting the environment down there too.
Yeah,
Maybe other
yeah.
things that have to be done first, or even overgrowth of maybe H. pylori or something like that. You got to wipe out first. Who knows?
Right. So this is truth or trend, right? So respond
Right.
on the bottom. If there's something we need to bend or adjust our focus, we want to learn too.
Oh yeah, that's what we're here for. So
Awesome.
I also want to say one last thing about it, and this might be our topic of the conversation next week. But then after we sleep this week, we'll probably rehash sleep. But another thing that I just kind of dismissed early on when I was getting deep into mushrooms is ergothioneine. Ergothioneine coming from mushrooms being this amazing, reducer of oxidative stress in the brain and all these things in the body. Well, L-Reuteri was shown to increase endogenous, well, not endogenous, but make its own ergothioneine as well. So there's another layer there that we can talk about what ergothioneine is and why and how it's associated with L-Reuteri too. So there's another crazy benefit that's associated.
Pitching your product again.
Well,
I'm with you. I love it. It works great.
We've got a problem to solve. We're going to solve it. If we don't have the tools to do it, we're going to make it.
And so just to help as people are starting to take initiative with this, I do find probiotics work best at bedtime. Organs all have 2-hour windows. The colon's primary time of activity is between 5 and 7 a.m. That's why typically if you're only going to have one movement a day, typically it's going to be first thing in the morning, because just before you wake up, colon is done. It's kind of the final step in the detox season or detox process. So most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, if we're talking about a probiotic and putting it into life, I'm having a patient take it right before they go to bed. Okay. So the other side of that, we did talk about small intestine for the absorption, assimilation of nutrients. That is more lunchtime. That's typically 1 to 3 in the afternoon. But so there might be that small segment of the population where they'd be taking it at lunch or something sometime near there. But for the most part, I would recommend, or if you're trying to guess on your own, I would suggest taking this at bedtime.
Yeah. Okay. Or taking a spoonful of the yogurt, right? If you can make
right.
Now there's a lot of ways you can find to do that. And if you guys get stuck on that, hit us with a message. We'll guide you to where you can make your own yogurt. But have you made yours yet?
My machine will be here Wednesday.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I'll be making some myself this week. I'm going to try it the old fashioned way, just in the oven. So.
Okay. Nice. Way to start.
But I've been taking it myself, and I've been taking a lot of the smaller one, and I've definitely noticed some of the anecdotal things that have been reported in this, because it hasn't all been shown through science yet, but I definitely feel the difference already myself, which is
me as well. I've been taking mine at mostly at bedtime and enjoying the benefits.
Yeah, nice.
In the morning.
We'll try to wrap that up, unless there's anything we didn't cover on that today.
I'm sure there's plenty we didn't cover, but people need to get back to their lives too.
That's right. Okay, thanks for watching,
you and
guys.
I will go all day.
We will. We'll keep this coming every week. Hit us with some topics, and we'll try to cover them as best we can, and give you the guidance that you need to, be as happy and healthy as we are every day.
And we look forward to your comments below on how this affects your life.
Definitely. Thanks for watching.